Sairam students, let's begin with the class 8 geography. Chapter number 2, that is land, soil, water, natural vegetation and wildlife resources. Today we are doing the part 4 of this chapter. And the last part, content of this chapter is land, soil, water, natural vegetation and wildlife. We have already learnt about land, soil, water, right? So today we are going to deal in this session with natural vegetation and wildlife. Just before going to that topic, in water we learnt about the uses of water, then the problems of water availability and the methods that were used for conservation of water resources, right? Now, natural vegetation and wildlife. Natural vegetation and wildlife. In this topic, we are going to learn about the distribution of natural vegetation and the conservation of natural vegetation and wildlife. Now, natural vegetation and wildlife. You all are very much aware about the word natural vegetation and wildlife. Means you all know animals, insects, birds, everything is included in that. Where this natural vegetation and wildlife exist? Natural vegetation and wildlife exist only in the narrow zone of contact between the lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. You all know very well about the lithosphere, that is connected to the land sphere, right? And hydrosphere, that is water sphere, and atmosphere, air, okay? That together we call it as biosphere. Now, in the biosphere, living beings are interrelated and interdependent on each other for survival, right? So this life supporting system is known as the ecosystem. You have already learnt in your previous class related to biosphere and ecosystem. Now, you know that vegetation and wildlife, these are the valuable resources, right? And even there are innumerable uses of plants. Vegetation and plants provide us with timber, it gives shelter to animals, produce oxygen that we breathe, protect soil to essential for growing crops, acts as shelter belts and even help in storage of underground water, gives us fruits, nuts, latex, turpentine oil, gum, medicinal plants, and also the most important thing, the paper. That is the paper that we use, that is very much essential for your studies, right? So we can say there are innumerable uses of plants and still more we can add into that, right? Now, wildlife includes what? It includes animals, birds, insects, as well as the aquatic life, right? Then they provide us milk, meat, hides, and wool. Insects like bees provide us honey, and they also insects like bee provide us honey, as well as they help us in the pollination of flowers. You have learnt about the pollination of flowers in your lower classes, and they have an important role to play as decomposers in the ecosystem. Now, what is the meaning of decomposers here? Decomposers means like breakdown. These are decomposers are also called as the scavengers also. They break down the dead animals and plants, and they also break down the waste of other organisms. So decomposers are very important for any ecosystem. If these are not present in the ecosystem, the plants would not get the essential nutrients and dead matter and waste would pile up. So decomposers are very important in maintaining the ecosystem, and that is what the insects are doing, that the honeybees, they do that work of decomposers. The birds feed on insects and act as decomposers as well. So even insects like honeybee and the birds, they all play the important role in maintaining the ecosystem as decomposers. Now here you can see the image has been given to you of vulture. Vulture also, due to its ability to feed on dead livestock, is a scavenger and considered a vital cleanser of the environment. So we can say animals, whether big or small, all are integral, all are important in maintaining balance in the ecosystem. Now the next topic that we will be learning is distribution of natural vegetation. Now, the growth of vegetation depends primarily on two factors, that is temperature and moisture. The major vegetation types of the world are grouped as forest, grasslands, scrubs, tundra. Now, in areas of heavy rainfall, huge trees may thrive, right? The forests are thus associated with areas having abundant water supply. Correct? You know about this. The huge trees you can see only in the forest, and that is possible only in that areas where the abundant water supply is available. As the amount of moisture decreases, the size of trees and their density reduces. So in the regions of moderate rainfall, short stunted trees and grasses grow, forming the grasslands of the world. Then, in dry areas of low rainfall, thorny shrubs and scrubs grow. In such areas, plants have deep roots and leaves have thorny and waxy surface to reduce loss of moisture by transpiration. Here you can see in the scrubs we will get that type of vegetation. Then the next is tundra vegetation. Tundra vegetation of cold polar regions comprises of mosses and lichens. Now, forests are broadly classified as evergreen forest and deciduous forest. That is depending on when they shed their leaves. Now, evergreen, you all have learnt about the evergreen forest and the deciduous forest in your lower class also. Now, evergreen forest, it means from the word itself, they do not shed their leaves simultaneously in any season of the year. That is the reason these forests are always green, evergreen. Whereas deciduous forests shade their leaves in a particular season to conserve loss of moisture through transpiration. Now, these forests are further classified as tropical and temperate, that is based on their location in different latitudes. Then, today there are many more people in the world than there were 2 centuries back. Yeah, do you all agree with this? The ever increasing population? Yes. To feed the growing numbers, large areas of forest have been cleared. That is, deforestation has been done to grow crops. Then forest cover all over the world is vanishing rapidly. Now there is an urgent need to conserve this valuable resource. That is the reason now we are going to learn about the conservation of natural vegetation and wildlife. Now, forests are our wealth. Do you all agree with this thing? Yes. Plants give shelter to the animals and together they maintain the ecosystem. Changes of climate and human interference can cause the loss of natural habitats for the plants and animals. Many species have become endangered species. Endangered species means what? The species that are likely to become extinct in the near future. Or maybe they are at risk due to factors such as habitat loss, such as because of the poaching, that we are going to learn further. And some are on the verge of extinction. Extinction means either that particular species is not at all alive in the world or that species has died out. So now deforestation, soil erosion, constructional activities, forest fires, tsunami and landslides are some of the human-made and natural factors which together accelerate the process of extinction of these great natural resources. That is the natural vegetation and wildlife. So one of the major concern is the increasing incidence of poaching. Now what is that poaching? Animal poaching means killing the animals illegally. Now here the animals are poached for what purpose? For collection and illegal trade of hides, skins, nails, teeth, horns as well as feathers. Some of these animals are tiger, lion, elephant, blackbuck, crocodile, snow leopard, peacock, rhinoceros. So what is to be done to stop that poaching? This can be conserved by increasing awareness. Now, for conservation, what should be done? The national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves are made to protect our natural vegetation and wildlife. Now, let us understand the meaning of what is a national park. It's a natural area designated to protect the ecological integrity of one or more ecosystems for present as well as for the future generation. Now let's understand the meaning of biosphere reserves. It's a series of protected areas linked through a global network intended to demonstrate the relationship between conservation and development. So these are the national park, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves are made to protect our natural vegetation. Even conservation of creeks, lakes, and wetlands is necessary to save the precious resource from depletion. There is a balance in the environment if the relative number of species is not disturbed. Human activities in several parts of the world have disturbed the natural habitats of many species. Now, due to indiscriminate killings, several birds and animals have either become extinct or they are at the verge of extinction. So, many countries have passed the laws declaring that the trade as well as killing of birds and animals are illegal. Even in our country, India, also killing of lion, tiger, and even peacocks have been banned. So now we will learn about the awareness programs that should be taken into consideration. What is that awareness program? Awareness programs like social forestry and One Mahotsav. Now let's understand the meaning of what is that social forestry. See, social forestry, it's the management and protection of forest and afforestation of barren and deforested lands with the purpose of helping our environment, social and rural development. So main purpose, it was intended as a democratic approach to forest conservation. So simply, in simple terms, we can say it is connected to afforestation. It means growing more and more trees, more and more plants. And one Mahotsav, what is that? It is also one of the social program of planting trees at community levels as well as at the regional levels. So school children should be encouraged for bird watching and visiting nature camps so that they will appreciate the habitat of varied species. Now here an international convention sites. You can see here sites has been given to you. Now let's see what is the full form of this sites. It's a convention on international trade in endangered species of wild fauna and flora. That international convention has been established that lists several species of animals and birds in which trade is prohibited. So, conservation of plants and animals is an ethical duty of each and every citizen. Here in this slide, you can see the forest fire has been given to you. Now, this is like the news item has been shown in this slide and how the fire started in California. That reason has been given here. Now, what is the forest fire? Let's try to understand that. Forest fire, it's a threat to entire region of fauna and flora. It occurs mainly due to the three reasons, that is a natural fire due to lightning, or fire due to heat generated in the litter due to carelessness of people, then purposely caused fire by the local inhabitants. So these are the main reasons through which the fire can occur in the forest. Then how to control this? Preventive of human caused fires through education. The people should be educated and should be made aware about this. Then prompt detention of fires through well coordinated network. The network should be so good that someone has observed, immediately the action should be taken. Observation point, efficient ground patrolling and communication network. So this should be done to avoid the forest fire. So here we have completed with the today's topic, that is natural vegetation and wildlife. Let's have the quick recap of what we have learnt in the today's topic. We learnt about the biosphere, then we learnt about the ecosystem, then we saw the innumerable uses of plants, right? Then we saw the wildlife. What does it include? Animals, birds, insects, as well as the aquatic life forms, correct? Then we saw the decomposers, insects as the decomposers, birds as the decomposers, even vulture as a decomposer. That is a vital cleaner in our environment, cleanser of the environment. Then we saw about the distribution of vegetation, right? The distribution of vegetation was divided as forest, grasslands, scrubs and tundra vegetation. right? Then we learnt about the forests were classified as two, that is evergreen and deciduous forest, that is depending on when they shed their leaves. Again, the further classification was given on the basis of location and altitude, that is tropical and temperate grasslands. Then the next it is given as the conservation of natural vegetation, right? We saw the deforestation, the factors that were the human made and the natural factors that were responsible for to accelerate the process of extinction of these natural resources. Then we saw the major concern, one of the most important concern was poaching of the animals, and we saw the reason also why the animals are poached. Then we learned about the awareness programs that should be created among the children also, and also the method of conservation as national park, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves that should be made to protect our natural vegetation and wildlife, right? Then we learnt about the different programs, that is social forestry as well as a Van Mahotsav that should be encouraged so that the conservation can be done and the awareness can be created among the people. Then the most important at last about the international convention, that is sites, we learnt about that. Then at last we saw about the forest fire. So here we have completed with our chapter